Hello, and welcome now to this video. So, yeah, I know. Once again, I'm doing a video in bed. I've just been going through it lately, in a lot of ways. I'll get to all of that at another time when I feel a little bit more ready for that. But in this video, I kind of wanted to talk about something that I've been meaning to talk about for a while now, because I think it's such an interesting topic. And yeah, let's get to it. So I'm sure I'll title this video something that'll clue people into what the hell I'm talking about. But yeah, so there is a very personal problem regarding things that have kind of gone on in my life here with respects to people not entirely understanding what it is that I'm trying to convey and that what I'm trying to say here. And look, I kind of had that happen today with someone very close to me. And although it is kind of the thing that made me want to create this video, it's not coming from a bad place. It's coming from a place of wanting to create a little bit of clarity here, right? Because this is a very real thing for me. And now that it's fresh on my mind, I figure, why not talk about it? And the problem arises with the way that I communicate versus the way most people understand things and how they communicate. Right? So let's get to it. Most people, the way they communicate in this world and with each other, and the way they understand things, more importantly, does come from a feelings-based perspective. And what I mean by this is, most people, when you are talking to them, of course, this is going to be, when you're talking to them, it's not like you're talking to them about your favorite flavor of ice cream or whatever, even though like in a more subtle way, yeah, but this more specifically has to do when you are talking to people about feelings, about emotions, or about things going on, more heavy subjects, things that are not very surface level, right? When things get a little deep or a little deeper. When you are telling somebody something, this is how most people operate, you're telling them the thing from a you feel this way perspective. So it's going to be, I feel this certain way about this certain thing, and therefore I'm going to convey to you and express how I feel about this thing that I'm talking about. And then that person is going to hear what you say, and then they're going to understand what you are telling them through how they feel about that thing. Oh, I see you feel this way. I feel this way about that thing. So let's talk about how we feel. And it's very feelings based, right? And that is how people understand each other, right? It's based on, you are telling me these things and I am understanding what you're saying based on how I'm feeling in that moment, how I feel about the person who's telling me this thing, how I feel about the thing that they're talking about, right? It's all based in feelings. And although this is important, I do feel like people who don't do that, like me, this is where the problem kind of arises. We are not very feelings based in our approach to when we communicate. We are very, I'm not going to say like logic based. I don't know what you would call it. It's a detachment from feelings is when we talk, right? So how does this translate into actual conversation? The feelings based conversation will be, I feel this thing about this, whatever. Oh, I see you feel that way. I feel this way about that. And what happens is the person who is telling the story or saying whatever, the person who they're telling it to is going to be understanding it based on the feeling. So they're going to be looking into how it's being said. Are they saying it with a certain emotion? They're going to interpret the words that are being used. Okay, they used these specific words. That could mean that they feel this kind of way about it. They said things with this kind of intonation. So on and so forth. There's a lot of reading into the details of what the person is saying and kind of like nitpicking, or I won't say nitpicking, but kind of like just reading into the details of what is being said, the words that are being said, the way it's being said, the tonality of how it's being said, all of that, right? When you are not that kind of person and you are separate feelings in communication kind of person, you will tend to be, more often than not, a bigger picture speaker, right? So when I speak, when I am telling people things, I'm not saying these things based on how I am feeling. It's not coming from a feelings place. It's coming from I am trying to paint you a bigger picture here. So the words that I use, the tonality is not really important at all for me. So I could sound many different ways. I could sound very excited. I could sound very bored. I could sound angry. It's not on purpose. I'm not choosing a specific tone to convey the message. It's just kind of like how I speak. Sometimes I'm very passionate about what I'm talking about. Other times I'm very neutral and it comes across as like I'm bored, or it might even come across like I'm angry. I'm not. I'm just neutral, right? When I'm passionate about something, it sounds very passionate. Anyway, so the tonality is not important at all in what I am saying, because my tonality is not always going to match how I'm feeling about it. Because again, I'm not coming from a feelings place. I'm not communicating based on feelings. I'm communicating based on the bigger picture that I'm trying to paint, right? So my word usage might be a little weird. My tonality might not be super fitting, or it might, come off like a certain way. And the reason for this is because I am trying to paint, like I said, I'm trying to paint that bigger picture for you. And something that I've learned being this bigger picture speaker is the absolute importance of metaphors and allegories. Now, there's a reason why Jesus Christ and many Abrahamic religions, at least that's what I'm familiar with, so that's what I'll go with, is Abrahamic religions. There's a reason why in a lot of Abrahamic religions, the Messiah, or the Jesus, or the whoever of that religion, spoke very metaphorically and allegorically, right? They used a lot of metaphors. They painted a lot of pictures. Why? Because when you are a bigger picture person, you have an ease of understanding very big, complex, esoteric topics and ideas. There's like this intuitive understanding of those topics. And because we have that ease of understanding it, we will naturally speak in ways that sound very confusing to people because they don't understand these concepts intuitively, right? So what we've had to learn is to speak in metaphors, speak allegorically, to paint, similarities between what I'm trying to talk about versus what you already know to exist in real life, so that it can make sense to you. So it'll very much look like, hey, here's this complex spiritual concept that I'm trying to convey to you. And this is very much alike to this real world thing that you are very familiar with, right? Like, for example, what I used to describe my spiritual journey is a butterfly, right? I was a caterpillar before. I existed in the capacity that I existed, but all I knew was how to eat leaves and roam around to find more leaves to eat. That's all I really knew. I knew that there was this greater calling to become a butterfly, but I didn't understand what it meant. And then something happened, and something changed within me and stirred this spiritual awakening in me. And I'm now in this cocoon phase. And within this cocoon phase, it's very difficult for me to exist as a caterpillar like I did before, because I'm not a caterpillar, right? I am in a cocoon. I am transforming in this current moment. So I can't be that caterpillar, that familiar caterpillar, the hungry caterpillar that I was before. And then eventually I will get to a point where I emerge a big, beautiful butterfly, right? And what am I trying to say with this metaphor, with this allegory, or not allegory, but this metaphor here? I am on a spiritual enlightenment journey. I was a caterpillar before. I knew that I had this call to be spiritually enlightened, but I didn't know how to get there. I didn't really understand it. Then something happened. I am now on this trajectory to spiritually awaken and spiritually enlighten. And I am in this transformational phase in my life right now. And then eventually I will become spiritually awakened, spiritually enlightened, and be in tune and aligned with my soul's purpose, right? And so I have gotten to the point where I use metaphors to describe the things that I'm saying. Because when I talk about the esoteric stuff, the way I naturally will express it, there's confusion, right? And the lines get very confusing for people to understand. The reason for this is like what I was saying earlier. Because people go about it feelings based, they read into the details of what you are saying. So they're not really focused on the picture that you are trying to paint. They're more focused on, well, you used these words and you described it in this capacity and you said this thing exactly and your tone was this way, right? And although I understand the significance of doing that and I understand the importance of doing that for people, it's a way to kind of connect to people on a more emotional level, on a more feelings-based level. For those of us who have that detachment when we speak, it's very difficult because you will live most of your life completely misunderstood by people. And this is why you have to learn how to be allegorical or metaphorical in your speech patterns. It's very equivalent to astrology. We've come full circle here. How the fuck does this, how is it similar? How is astrology an example of this? Well, come with me on this ride. Most people do not understand astrology, not because they're not able to necessarily, but because it's written in a language that they need interpreted to them. This is why you have astrologers. Astrologers kind of speak astrology language almost intuitively. It's the reason we become astrologers, because when we first get into astrology, or we first really start getting into astrology and we start learning the language, it's very intuitive. It's very, wow, this makes a whole lot of sense to me. I understand exactly what's being told to me, right? And a lot of people don't have that with astrology. To them, they think that your natal chart is going to tell you exactly how it is for you, exactly what it is for you. And they think that the astrologer is going to tell you, well, this is how you are, and this is exactly all the things going on in your life. No. Your natal chart is but a compass, right? It's literal compass that's going to point you and guide you in the direction that you probably should be going to. That's all it really is. It's a compass, right? So a compass is not going to tell you where to go. If you're trying to go northeast, it's not going to tell you where you're headed when you go northeast. It's not giving you a destination to go to. All it's simply saying is, hey, if you're going northeast, northeast is that way, right? So go that way. That's northeast. That's all it's doing. It's the same thing with astrology. It's just going to describe, it's like a blueprint of sorts. It's going to describe how you the tendencies you have in life, or how you express certain feelings, or how you express certain things in your life. For example, if you have Venus in the 7th house in the sign of Leo, for example, all astrology is going to tell you, if that is your natal placement, the only thing it's going to tell you, Venus is the planet of love. It's the planet of beauty. It's the planet of, aesthetics and stuff, right? Leo is a fiery sign. It's very passionate. It's very fiery, warm. 7th house has to do with marriage or relationships, specifically one-on-one relationships, but they can be romantic or platonic in nature, right? So what is that placement? What is it going to tell you? It's going to tell you, because Venus is the planet of love, that is how you express love and how you prefer to receive love from other people. It being in the 7th house pertains to how you love your relationships, how you love the people in your life, but not in a social aspect, but on a one-on-one personal level aspect, right? And it being in the sign of Leo is going to tell you that you love very passionately. You are a very passionate person when it comes to expressing your love for your friends individually. And that is the kind of love you like to receive back from them, right? But what it's not going to tell you is the nuances of those friendships. It's just going to tell you how you give love and how you would prefer to receive love. And that's just one thing that Venus is in that placement is going to tell you. There's a lot of other things that it'll tell you, but for the sake of this video not being 800 years long, we'll just talk about that, right? That's all it's going to paint for you. But let's say, for example, it was Cancer instead of Leo. Well, then now that changes the dynamic. You're not going to express your love in a more passionate, very expressive fashion necessarily. You're going to express your love very nurturing. You're going to be very nurturing. You're going to really care about your friends in that, like, you want to be like almost a motherly, nurturing kind of figure to them, because that is how you express your love. You express it in a very nurturing capacity, and that is how you like to receive love. You like to be nurtured, right? This is a very general thing, but because astrology is not black and white like that, that could also be affected depending on other placements in your chart and your personal experience in life, right? So let's say, for example, you have Venus in Cancer in the 7th house. With that placement alone, like I said, you are very nurturing to your friends, and that is how you express love. But what if in your life you were very heavily coddled? You were overly nurtured growing up, and your mother was very overbearing on you. Well, that might change things a little bit for you, depending on your experiences, depending on how you handled those experiences and how they made you feel. You may still have the capacity that you express love in a nurturing fashion, but when it comes to other people nurturing you, you may have a little bit of an aversion to that nurturing capacity, and for them to nurture you like that, because you were coddled too much when you were growing up, and your mother was all over you in terms of nurturing you, right? There may be a little bit of an aversion there. All of this to basically say, people will get lost in the fact that they think that astrology is going to tell them exactly how it is for them. That is what they expect. And they expect the astrologer to just know what to tell them, right? And the reason for this is because people will look at a natal chart, they'll look at their natal chart, or they'll hear an astrologer speaking, and they don't understand that the point of astrology is not to tell you how it is for you. The point of astrology is to guide you in a specific direction so that you can then make the connections to your life yourself, right? Yes, Venus is in Cancer in the 7th house, and it means all these things that I've talked about, or at least one aspect of it is these things that I've talked about. But now it's up to you to interpret that and how it relates to your life. What happened in your life that can, answer why you experience this general thing in your life, right? And this is the reason why astrologers will kind of pry at you a little bit and ask you kind of personal questions, because they're trying to get a read for you so that they can make the connections, because they know that their clients are not going to be making those same connections, because not everybody really has the capacity to do that. Not everybody does that intuitively. Most people intuitively are not really making those kinds of connections in a general sense, because they're not bigger picture oriented. They're not thinking broader terms. They're thinking detailed terms. And the reason why that miscommunication happens is because of that. So it's a lot harder for somebody who is more detail oriented to make connections to things outside of the immediate surrounding of that specific detail that they're focusing on, as opposed to somebody who speaks in more broader, big picture terms, who can make those connections to things that might not be so close to that detail. And this is why we speak the way that we do in bigger picture terms, because we are not focused on the one specific thing we're talking about. When I'm talking to somebody and I'm expressing something to them, yes, I'm talking about this specific thing here, but I'm also talking about all of these other things that relate to it. But I'm not really naming these things, because the implication is like, the connection is there. Intuitively, the connection is there. But people that focus on the details are not going to have that intuitive connection, right? And so now it's up to me to kind of paint a picture using metaphors or allegories to make that connection, so that you have the detail here, you have the other topic here, and then the allegory sits in between to connect the two, so that the person can say, oh, I see how this relates to what you're saying. It relates because it's like the same thing as this metaphor that you used, right? And this is why big picture people like me are so misunderstood in society, and why it's hard for us to find people that truly understand us and truly speak our language, because big picture speakers are not common. We're very uncommon. I would say we're quite rare as people, because most people function in that capacity where they focus on the details of things because it's based on feelings, right? Because feelings have to be detail focused. You can't really feel your feelings if everything is broad, if everything is very generalized. It's not going to give you a clarity in how you feel. You need to pinpoint specific details in order to express that feeling, in order to feel that feeling. And because people mostly talk through feelings based, that is why they're detail oriented. Whereas bigger picture people, we're a little bit more detached from feelings when we communicate. And that is why we can make those big broad strokes. That sounded sexual, but it's why we can make those bigger picture connections when we speak. But anyway, let me know what you guys think. I thought that this was a very interesting topic to talk about, because I have been dealing with it my entire life as someone who speaks in bigger picture terms and broader terms. People misunderstand me all the time. And it's very difficult when you feel like you are always misunderstood. It's a very difficult life. But it's one that I'm starting to recognize is a good thing for me, because my trajectory in my life in the current moment is to help people. And that's kind of my soul's mission in this lifetime, is to be that guide, that shepherd, to help people understand not just themselves, but kind of where they need to head to in their soul's mission. That's kind of my job here on earth, is to guide people. And I will be doing that through astrology. So, hey, if anybody watching, if you want astrology readings, I will be doing them very soon. I'm going to try and get like a whole, I don't know, a website. I don't know how I would even do that, but I'm going to try and get like a whole group kind of thing started to start taking in, taking in clients, I guess, people that want readings and stuff like that. If you want a reading from me, just let me know. Comments below, and DM me through YouTube, or I'll probably post my Instagram in the description below. That'll probably be the easiest way to connect to me. And yeah, as always, please find that subscribe button wherever it is for you, up, down, left, right, pink and blue, like the trans flag. Dance's Revolution, wherever a subscribe button is for you, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.